All right. If anybody is watching on the live stream, just let us know how the audio's sounding. I think Ari's going to go check, and then I think we should be. Everybody can hear the speaker down here pretty well. I'm going to do our usual introduction that we do on the live from Occupied City Halls, and then I'll get into speaking more specifically about the significance of today. So my name is Leslie Rolfe, and I'm a member of the May 30th Alliance. The May 30th Alliance is a direct action organization located in Rockford, Illinois, dedicated to the struggle to end police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice. On October 2nd, 2020, Tyrus Jones was shot by the Rockford Police Department while running away. And on October 3rd, 2020, we began the occupation of the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois. Our occupation of the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois continued on through the end of November when Officer Dominic McNeese, who shot Tyrus Jones, will be found to be justified in his attempted murder. Our occupation of City Hall will continue through January 5th, 2021, when Denzel Duvine, another unarmed black man, will be assaulted by multiple Rockford Police Department officers while he was handcuffed. One of the officers involved in that assault would be Officer Dominic McNeese, who just months earlier had been involved in the attempted murder of Tyrus Jones. Our occupation of the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois will continue through April 10th, 2021, when Faustin Guaitigo will be murdered in his home by Winnebago County Sheriff Deputy Joseph Brulard. Our occupation will continue our occupation of the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois will continue when no more than 24 hours later, Jose Gonzalez Jr. will be shot while running away by Rockford Police Department Officer Owen McGinnis. Our occupation of the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois will continue through April 25th, 2021, when a high-speed pursuit would take place in the streets of Rockford, Illinois, and Raymond Jackson would die after a car that was being chased by the Rockford Police Department would collide with his vehicle, killing him and critically injuring two of the children that were in the car with Raymond Jackson. Our occupation of the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois will continue through August 2021, when they would find the murder of Faustin Guaitigo to be ruled justified, and Joseph Brulard will return to the streets of Winnebago County. Our occupation of the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois will continue when in September 2021, it will be found justified that Jose Gonzalez Jr. was shot by Officer Owen McGinnis, and Rockford Police Department Officer Owen McGinnis will return to the streets of Rockford, Illinois. And as we sit here on October 1st, 2021, we anticipate a justified ruling in the high-speed pursuit that led to the death of Raymond Jackson. So we want to say justice for Raymond Jackson, justice for Faustin Guaitigo, justice for Jose Gonzalez Jr., justice for Denzel Duvine, and justice for Tyrus Jones, with the realization that there may be some people who have understanding and empathy for one of these cases or two of these cases or three of these cases, but do not have that understanding and empathy for all of these cases. And so it becomes our responsibility to explain to people how each and every act of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice directly and indirectly affects each and every other act of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice. And it's also our responsibility to explain how, as community members in Rockford, Illinois, and in Winnebago County, each and every one of us are directly and indirectly affected by police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice. We're here today on October 1st, 2021, to honor Lil Mike Sago Jr., Michael Sago Jr., who was murdered on October 1st, 2011, 10 years ago to this day. Little Mike Sago Jr. was a brother. Little Mike Sago Jr. was a son. Little Mike Sago Jr. was a friend and a loved one, and those are the things that, and a human being, and those are the things that are the most important to remember about this young man who had his life taken away. I think it's also important for us to remember that not only did the officer who murdered Little Mike Sago Jr., return back to the streets of Winnebago County and return back to to endanger members of this community, but he was given an award for the murder of little Mike Sago Jr. This man has run for office in Winnebago County and in Rockford, Illinois, multiple times since the murdering of little Mike Sago Jr. He continues to be employed by the Winnebago County Sheriff deputies 10 years after the murdering of little Mike Sago Jr., a 16-year-old who was murdered, who was shot 3 times while crawling away, shot in the back 3 times while crawling away. And so another one of the parts of justice is when something happens to a community member, the community and the city finding ways to make sure that those things don't continue to happen to other people. And so to add insult to injury to the murder of little Mike Sago Jr., as we sit here 10 years later, we still have the same issues that led to his murder continuing to perpetrate our society, continuing to be relevant in our community. And so we have taken the time out to have a small vigil or memorial for little Mike Sago. It's one of the things that we're trying to get into practice for doing for all the people that we have these memorials here for on Say Their Name Square. There have been some people who we have not been able to put together events for, and some dates that we have missed, but we plan to continue to be out here and to make up for all of those dates, to try to get into the routine as a community of remembering these days, remembering these events, so we can judge how far we have came or how far we have not come based off the things that have happened already in the past. So I want to encourage anybody who may not be here now, just like we have always done, to come out to Say Their Name Square at some point in time, to come out and look at these memorials, to come out and look at these pictures and look at these names, to bring their children out, to bring their friends out, or to bring their loved ones out, because the only way we're going to progress and to grow and evolve past these issues is these issues being known by all of us, these issues being all of us being informed about these things. And so we're not going to really be able to have a moment of silence out here. But what I do want to do is just take some time with me not speaking, and I'll let the camera just sort of be on little Mike Sago Jr.'s memorial. And if anybody that's watching on the comments can just put a rest in power to little Mike Sago Jr. in the comments. And then after a few minutes, I'll come up here and we'll do this now. I'll say rest in power, and then everybody that's out here say little Mike. All right, so rest in power. Let me hear that one louder. Rest in power. Rest in power. Rest in power. Rest in power. All right, we're going to take a couple minutes. We let this camera just sit on his memorial, and we all just sit here for a second. I got like a spider web on my face. It's crazy. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this live that we got. Oh shit. Hold on. We're gonna let the motorcycles go. Okay. All right. We're gonna get ready in this live here. We'll probably I'm gonna get ready and stop talking. But on the live, I'm gonna take the camera off and just do a surveying of the area, so that way people at home can sort of see how we have things set up here. And again, I want to. I want to encourage people to come out to these memorials, to share this video, to come get the Winnebago Boone Integrity Task Force pamphlet, which has the events of what took place that led to the murder of little Mike Sago Jr. inside of it, to become informed about these things. And our job is to continue to bring awareness to these issues, to bring awareness to the people who have been victims of the macro aggressions of these issues, so we can get to a place as a community where we all understand the gravity of these issues through the regularity of how often we have to do things like these visuals, and how often we have to do things like point out when the date of justified verdicts came out, or the birthdays of the people who are on these memorials. So again, I want to say rest in power to little Mike Sago Jr. I want to say justice for little Mike Sago Jr. And we'll end this live like how we end all the other lives. Justice for Demetrius Bennett. Justice for Mark Barmore. Justice for Jovan Fresco. Justice for Logan Bell. Justice for Kerry Blake. Justice for Geno Washington. Justice for Philip Johnson. Justice for Jasper Banks. Justice for Suzette Babler. Justice for Faustin Guaitigo. Justice for Shannon Graves. Justice for Mikey Guzman. Justice for Joseph McCormick. Justice for Eddie Patterson. And justice for little Mike Sago Jr. And we want to send our condolences and our thoughts, our prayers and wishes and love out to the family of little Mike Sago Jr. Oh, my fault, bro. All right, so this is the memorial. We got things set up. All right. It's gonna rain tomorrow, so this ain't gonna be here permanently, but candles down over here. All right, so we're gonna build a routine of doing this every year. All right, 10 years. 10 years, he'd have been 26. All right, we outside.